I promised myself I was going to wait a while before diving back into this universe, but you know what? Screw it. Let's talk about the absolute masterclass that is Better Call Saul Season 1. We open not in the sun-drenched deserts of Albuquerque, but in a black and white, depressing purgatory otherwise known as Omaha, Nebraska. Saul Goodman, now masquerading as Gene Takavic, spends his days quietly making mediocre cinnamon rolls and living in a state of perpetual terror that someone is going to out him for his highly illegal past. He goes home, pours a sad drink, and watches his old Better Call Saul commercials, literally reflecting in his glasses in full color. His life sucks. Classic. But let's rewind the clock and inject some color back into this tragedy. Season 1, Episode 1, Uno. The script throws us straight into the public defender trenches. Jimmy McGill bursts into the courtroom, sweating, desperate, and basically pissing his pants trying to defend 3 dumbass teenagers who decapitated a corpse and sexually violated it. Yikes. Jimmy gives it his absolute all, only to get a paycheck so insulting it basically slaps his face. He drives his god-awful Suzuki Esteem, gets bullied by a stoic parking attendant named Mike, and tries to woo Craig and Betsy Kettleman, a couple who embezzled $1.6 million. Craig is an absolute cuck, while Betsy is the real boss babe pulling the strings. When they ditch him for the corporate giant Hamlin and McGill, Jimmy loses his mind and beats the blowbee out of a trash can. We also meet his brother, Chuck, a brilliant legal mind who wraps himself in space blankets because he claims to suffer from electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Wait a second. Hold on. Let's look at Chuck's illness. A highly popular internet theory points out that Chuck's EHS is entirely psychosomatic, triggering specifically when Jimmy is either achieving success or slipping back into his con man ways. It's the physical manifestation of his egomaniacal need to control Jimmy. Absolute god-tier writing. Production-wise, this entire cold open was originally pitched as a full black and white pilot episode before the network reeled them back in. An easy A-tier to start us off. Season 1, Episode 2, My Joe. After Jimmy hires 2 red-headed skateboard twins, the ultimate naive dumbass accomplices, to pull a slip-and-fall scam on Mrs. Kettleman, they accidentally target the abuelita of none other than Tuco Salamanca. Whoopsie-daisy. Tuco is cooking up some salsa, dragging Jimmy into his house at gunpoint. Jimmy, using his absolute maxed-out charisma stats, talks Tuco down from skinning the twins alive. Tuco takes them out to the desert to play judge, jury, and executioner. Jimmy goes into full lawyer mode, bartering their lives down from a brutal cartel execution to just getting a couple of broken legs. I'm the best lawyer ever. He manages to get them out alive, but the visceral sound of breadsticks snapping later gives Jimmy massive PTSD while on a date. He's literally throwing up in the bathroom. The puke/piss metric strikes again. This is where Jimmy's journey on Bad Choice Road officially begins. He crosses paths with the cartel, and Nacho Varga immediately realizes Jimmy is a guy who can get things done. Fun behind-the-scenes trivia. Raymond Cruz, the actor who plays Tuco, famously hated playing the character because the erratic, screaming energy was too physically and mentally exhausting, which is why they wrote him out so quickly. This episode is pure tension. High B tier. Season 1, Episode 3, Nacho. We get a flashback to Jimmy locked up in a Cicero jail, sporting a shitty haircut and begging Chuck to save him from a sex offender charge after doing a Chicago sunroof, which, if you don't know, is defecating through a sunroof into your enemy's car. Visceral. Back in the present, Jimmy gets incredibly paranoid after Nacho tells him he's going to rob the Kettlemans for their stolen cash. Jimmy, trying to do the right thing, uses a payphone and a ridiculous sex robot voice to anonymously warn the Kettlemans. You're in danger. The Kettlemans vanish, Nacho gets arrested because his van was spotted, and Nacho threatens to end Jimmy's life if he doesn't clear his name. Wait a minute. Why does Jimmy care so much about saving the Kettlemans? It's not just morality. The Kettlemans are the exact 2 sides of the same coin framework applied to Jimmy's internal struggle. They are guilty criminals desperately pretending to be upstanding, innocent members of society. Exactly what Jimmy is trying to do as a legitimate lawyer. Jimmy eventually figures out the Kettlemans kidnapped themselves and finds them camping in their own backyard, singing campfire songs with a bag full of stolen cash. Hilarious. A solid B tier. Season 1, Episode 4, Hero. We get another flashback to Slippin Jimmy pulling a fake Rolex scam in an alleyway, taking some greedy guy's cash while letting him keep a useless watch. The perfect, tragic foil dynamic. In the present, Jimmy takes a massive bribe from the Kettlemans to keep his mouth shut about their stolen money. He uses this OnlyFans model money to completely rebrand himself, buying a tailored suit, bleaching his hair, and renting a billboard that perfectly plagiarizes Howard Hamlin's signature look and Hamlin indigo blue. Howard gets pissed and issues a cease and desist. So Jimmy hires a film crew, stages a fake news interview in front of the billboard, and saves a worker who conveniently falls off the scaffolding right as the cameras are rolling. He risks his own life to pull the dude up, cementing himself as a local hero. The entire scam works flawlessly, netting him a bunch of new clients. But why go through all this trouble just to spite Howard? Is it just petty revenge? Or is it because Jimmy secretly craves the corporate validation and respect that Howard effortlessly receives? Jimmy is basically cosplaying as the man he wishes his brother would see him as. Fun fact, AMC actually paid to put that fake Jimmy McGill billboard up in real-life Albuquerque, and if you called the phone number on it, you'd get a custom voicemail from Bob Odenkirk. God, I love the marketing for this show. Solid A tier. Season 1, Episode 5, Alpine Shepherd Boy. This episode takes a sudden, quiet, analytical pause. Chuck goes wandering outside to steal his neighbor's newspaper because Jimmy hid the one featuring his heroic billboard stunt. Chuck leaves $5, but the neighbor calls the cops anyway. The cops bust into Chuck's house, see the ripcords, the missing appliances, the gas lanterns, and immediately assume he's a certified meth tweaker. They tase him, send him to the hospital, and Chuck's brain completely short-circuits. The doctor secretly turns on the hospital bed's electronics while Chuck isn't looking, proving definitively that his EHS is a mental fabrication. Jimmy refuses to commit Chuck to a mental ward, bringing him back to his sinking ship of a house. To soothe Chuck, Jimmy promises he's going to play it straight and pivot into elder law. He buys a Matlock suit and starts handing out Jell-O to old folks at Sandpiper Crossing. Wait, did you notice the episode title? Every other episode in Season 1 ends in the letter O. Uno, Mijo, Nacho, Hero, 5-0, Bingo, Ryko, Pimento, Marco. This episode was originally supposed to be called Jell-O, but they couldn't get the copyright clearance in time, forcing them to break the absolute flawless naming convention. 0 out of 10 design choice. Still, it's a beautifully tragic episode. High B tier. Season 1, Episode 6, 5-0. Suddenly, the comedic momentum is abruptly halted for a slow, sincere, and incredibly profound deconstruction of Mike Ehrmantraut. We get a flashback to Mike arriving in Albuquerque, treating a bullet wound, and visiting his daughter-in-law, Stacy. We find out Mike was a dirty cop in Philly. His son, Matt, was a rookie who refused to take bribes. The other dirty cops, Hoffman and Fensky, worried Matt would rat them out, so they killed him. Mike tracks them down to a bar, pretends to be a drunken dumbass, lets them take his gun, and drives with them to an empty alleyway. They think they're pulling a fast one, but Mike pulls a hidden gun and slaughters them both. Back in the present, the Philly cops are interrogating Mike. He tells Jimmy to spill coffee on the detective so Mike can snatch his notebook. This leads to the legendary scene where Mike confesses everything to Stacy. I broke my boy. It's the first time we see the absolute depth of his compartmentalization and self-hatred. Jonathan Banks delivers an absolute masterclass performance here. The raw emotion, the visceral weight of his sins. He acts as the silent, hyper-competent protector operating under a shattered moral code. This is peak television. Easiest S tier of the season. Season 1, Episode 7, Bingo. Jimmy and Mike get pulled back into the Kettleman's orbit. Kim manages to secure a plea deal for Craig Kettleman that involves returning the embezzled money and doing a mere 16 months in prison. Craig is ready to sign, but his wife Betsy, the egomaniacal obstacle, completely rejects it, demanding 0 jail time and basically dragging her husband toward utter ruin. They fire Kim, which completely destroys her standing at HHM. She gets demoted to the cornfield. Jimmy, realizing his actions put Kim in this shitty situation, decides to sacrifice his own payday to save her. He hires Mike to break into the Kettleman's house and steal the stolen money they were hiding in the bathroom wall. Mike uses a blacklight to track the fluorescent spray he put on the cash. He drops it at Jimmy's office, and Jimmy hands it all over to the DA, forcing the Kettlemans to accept Kim's deal and saving her job. But look at Jimmy's psychological state. He literally hosts a bingo game at the nursing home and has a complete mental breakdown on the microphone, pulling b-balls over and over and ranting about the Chicago sunroof. The emotional toll of trying to do the right thing while losing everything he gained is tearing him apart. He ends up crying in his empty, massive new office space that he can no longer afford, kicking the door in absolute frustration. An incredible character study. High B tier. Season 1, Episode 8, Ryko. The script blesses us with a gorgeous flashback to the mailroom days. Jimmy secretly passes the bar exam via the University of American Samoa and excitedly shows Chuck, expecting a warm, brotherly embrace. Instead, Chuck looks like he just swallowed a lemon. Howard Hamlin comes down, clears the room, and quietly rejects Jimmy's application to be a lawyer at HHM. Back in the present, Jimmy starts piecing together that Sandpiper Crossing is systemically defrauding its elderly residents. He writes a demand letter on a literal piece of toilet paper and ends up diving into a dumpster filled with rancid trash to recover shredded documents. He drags these bags of trash into Chuck's living room. The two of them pull an all-nighter piecing the shredded paper back together, uncovering interstate commerce fraud. They have the makings of a massive Ryko class action lawsuit. Chuck's legal brain overrides his fake illness, and he becomes so engrossed in the work that he literally walks outside to get a box of documents from Jimmy's car without his space blanket, fully exposed to the sun and power lines. It's a beautiful, triumphant moment of the two brothers finally working together, acting as true peers. Bob Odenkirk actually requested that the dumpster diving scene be as gross and visceral as possible to highlight Jimmy's relentless dedication. Absolute god-tier progression. A tier. Season 1, Episode 9, Pimento. The sinking ship metaphor finally hits the ocean floor. Jimmy and Chuck are building this massive Sandpiper case. It's a gold mine. Chuck suggests they bring the case to HHM for extra resources, which Jimmy eagerly agrees to, assuming he will finally get an office next to his brother. When they present the case, Howard agrees to take it, pays Jimmy a massive finder's fee, but explicitly bars Jimmy from working at the firm. Jimmy loses his shit, calling Howard a cunt, and storms out. We think Howard is the ultimate egomaniacal obstacle. But then, the wait a second micro loop kicks in. Jimmy looks at Chuck's phone battery the next morning. He puts 2 and 2 together. It wasn't Howard. It was never Howard. Chuck used Howard as a shield to block Jimmy because Chuck couldn't stomach the idea of his con-man brother acting as his peer. Jimmy confronts Chuck, leading to the most devastating monologue in the series. "You're not a real lawyer! Slippin Jimmy with a law degree is like a chimp with a machine gun!" Chuck exposes his deepest insecurities and his visceral hatred for Jimmy's inherent likability. Jimmy realizes that no matter how hard he tries, no matter how straight he plays it, his own brother will only ever see him as a criminal. The tragic foil is revealed. Jimmy completely severs ties with Chuck. Meanwhile, Mike takes a bodyguard job for a nerdy pill supplier, brings a pimento cheese sandwich instead of a gun, and absolutely disarms a tough guy mercenary who tries to bully him. Jonathan Banks remains the silent enforcer. This episode is a flawless masterpiece. Double S tier. Season 1, Episode 10, Marco. We reach the finale. Jimmy hands the Sandpiper case to HHM and runs away to his old stomping grounds in Cicero, Illinois. He reunites with his old buddy Marco, the ultimate tragic foil, and the two spend a week pulling their classic Slippin Jimmy cons. They run the fake Rolex scam, the coin trick, having the absolute time of their lives. Jimmy finally feels validated and accepted, something Chuck denied him, but reality catches up. Jimmy gets a call from Kim. HHM is partnering with Davis and Maine, and they want to hire Jimmy as an associate, a legitimate, high-paying lawyer job. Jimmy is ready to go back, but Marco begs him for one last scam. They pull the Rolex con in an alleyway, but Marco has a literal heart attack and dies on the dirty pavement. I didn't even get to see the end of the movie. Yikes. Jimmy returns to Albuquerque to meet with Davis and Maine. He pulls up to the courthouse, hesitates, and rubs the pinky ring he took from Marco's hand. He stops. He asks Mike why they didn't just keep the $1.6 million they stole from the Kettlemans. Mike says he didn't do it because he was hired to do a job. Jimmy says he knows what stopped him, and he promises it is never going to stop him again. He gets in his Suzuki Esteem and drives away, humming smoke on the water. The payload of this season is just incredible. Better Call Saul took the fast-paced, meth-cooking chaos of Breaking Bad and completely subverted it, delivering a slow-burn, character-driven tragedy about a man whose attempts to be good are systematically dismantled by the systemic enabling of the legal world and the jealousy of his own blood. Chuck's betrayal didn't just hurt Jimmy. It completely destroyed his moral compass, locking him onto bad choice road forever. It's a profoundly sad deconstruction of pride, love, and the inescapable nature of our own flaws. Every minor decision cascades into utter ruin. It is an absolute masterclass in writing, elevating the entire Breaking Bad universe to heights nobody thought possible. But hey, we are only just getting started. There are 5 more seasons of this beautiful disaster to cover. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.